Hi, how are you? This is Dr. Damaris Maria Grossman, and this is the Mindfully Integrative Show. And today we have an amazing mindful chat with Tony Winward. He is from the UK, and he is a behavioral functional medicine coach, and he's going to talk to you more about his journey into integrative and functional medicine and how he is now helping others. So thanks so much, Tony, for being on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you, dear.
I really appreciate it. And so I always kind of go in and start with a little fun fact or something that people may not know about you if they've just kind of looked you up.
I have a very strange. Some of my friends think I'm an alien
What?
because
How is
when
that?
it's really hot, I don't feel hot, and yet when it's really cold, I don't feel cold.
So your regulation is probably pretty balanced then.
I just don't seem to be bothered by extreme temperatures.
Oh, you're not at all bothered. Maybe you
No,
just have good regulation, thyroid and, your overall, I mean, being on the functional medicine side, you probably have an excellent microbiome.
maybe. Yeah, it could be the case.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So let's talk about how you became behavioral health coach, functional medicine coach, and what did you do before that, and kind of what brought you to that?
Well, my background is very different. I
I
was
know.
a.
That's why I said usually when people come and talk to me and I have this conversation, there's a pivotal moment. So what did
Yeah.
you do before?
Well, so I was an international DJ. I worked in many countries around the world as a DJ for a
An
long time.
international DJ? That's pretty darn cool. Okay. Okay, so chat, tell me about that. Tell me how
So
that
I,
went.
I I lived in 14 countries. I visited about 90 countries. And yeah, I did that for a long time. And I mean, I've always loved music, and but how I got into what I do now came about 10 years ago, when in a space of 2 days, my mum was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Mhm.
And 2 days later, her brother, so my uncle, died from prostate cancer.
Oh
And
my.
I was having a
I'm
chat
sorry.
with one of the sons from my uncle that just passed away. And it suddenly dawned upon us that all of our relatives that had died of cancer, like 100% of them. Uh,
Mm.
So at that time, because my knowledge was nowhere, my knowledge of nutrition and health is good now. It wasn't so
Right.
good then. So at
Right.
that time, my thoughts were, oh, well, that means I'm going to get cancer.
Right. You think that immediately that your genetics will predispose you to everything so that
Yeah.
that's it. That's it. I don't have any chance of changing it.
So I started upon this frenzy almost of reading lots and lots of books. Initially, books on cancer, which led me into books on nutrition, which led me into, and I
It
just,
led you into functional medicine and led you
yeah,
into integrative health
yeah,
and all of these other elements. Yeah, you got into the rabbit hole that all of us
yeah.
didn't.
And then, but there was also one other incident. So that was like the main
That's a pretty big
catalyst.
one. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
that was the main one. But then something else happened about 3 years after that. So about 8 years ago. So I've always had asthma since I was a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was on I can remember the date. It's crazy. It was Christmas Eve, 2015. And was it 2000? So 2014, Christmas Eve. And a friend of mine posted about Buteyko to help people with asthma. And I was like, what is Buteyko? And I started reading this post, and there was a a Ukrainian scientist or doctor in the 50s and 60s called Christian Buteyko, who developed a breathing method which enabled you to just use this breathing method, and you didn't need to use medication to alleviate asthma.
Mm-hmm.
And I was intrigued because my whole life, all my doctors had always just given me
Give an
inhalers.
inhaler. Right.
No,
Yeah.
at no time had anyone ever told me there was an
Learn how to
alternative.
breathe. You mean learn how to
Yeah.
breathe or eat
Yeah.
better?
So I was kind of, I had two emotions. I was annoyed that no doctor had ever told me there was an alternative,
Yeah.
but I was amazed that there was an alternative. So I literally contacted I contacted the Buteyko advanced practice, or I forget. I contacted some
Mhm.
organization, and within 2 days, and this was Christmas,
Yeah.
it was Christmas Eve. Within 2 days, I was doing some online sessions with
Yeah.
them, and within about a couple of weeks, I no longer had to use medication for my asthma. It was amazing.
Yeah, the facts of so I'm more on the do a lot of yogic breathing, but have some similarities. I don't do that specific one. But I do teach a lot about prana breath work, and I've learned a lot. The areas, it's quite amazing how between that and then changing of your, you probably will talk further about what you're eating. It's the inflammatory response. I mean, granted, it may not fix every aspect for some people, but a good majority of individuals are mild to moderate, and a breathing technique will fix it.
Absolutely.
And
Well, I
and
mean,
and it's just so hard to you know, see people that understand that, and it's great to hear a conversation from someone saying, "Oh wow, we're not in any way saying in this conversation that not to take medication if needed, but where if someone in a safe mild to moderate can learn to strengthen their inner muscles and escalate their lungs, they can do a lot." So breath work is very, very powerful.
well, it led me to becoming a breathwork instructor because that I really went down a rabbit hole into breathwork once I
Oh,
discovered that.
wonderful. I didn't know that. Okay. Talk further.
Yeah. So I wanted to know a lot more about this. How does it work? I wanted to know the science behind it. I wanted to know a lot more about it. So I started attending workshops, reading books. There's a book, a very big book in this space where it was before James Nestor's Breathe, which came out a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that one.
Before that, the biggest book in this space was The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so I attended a workshop with him in 2016, and then I did the Oxygen Advantage instructor course in 2019.
Oh,
So I
wow.
became an
So
instructor.
you're an expert in this at this point. You're an
So
expert.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
I
would
know.
say.
Yeah.
That's
So I
awesome.
mean, I've read so many books around it. Obviously
I should
James
be calling you
Nestor's.
the breathwork expert, not the functional medicine expert.
Well, but it's funny you say that because the thing is, one of the things that I've
I mean,
discovered,
that's one
because
part of it, but yes.
yeah. So I mean, I did the course in functional medicine to become a health coach, with the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy,
Yeah.
and I also did a nutrition course with Precision Nutrition,
Hmm.
and I've done various other courses. And one of the interesting things I've found in every space that I've been in, so in the breathwork community,
Hmm.
they're all convinced that breathwork is the answer to almost anything.
Uh-huh.
In the nutrition community, nutrition is the answer to almost anything. In
Okay.
every community I'm in, they think that what they do is the answer. And what
What
I've
is my
learned,
answer? Or what did you learn, and what do you think? What do you
I've
think?
learned
Yeah.
it's not one thing, it's a
No,
combination of things.
it's
You
not
have
one.
to come at this from so many different dimensions.
Yes. I mean, considering why I got obsessed with this podcast, what I learned through my research and through clients and through my own health, yeah. If it was one thing, then everyone would be healthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it was one thing, then our biomechanics would work. I obsess and say, we're a machine, right? And each part of the machine in our life needs to be fixed, or it needs to be like oiled. Uh, and your lungs are just a big part of that. But
Mm,
and if I think it's when you let go of one part, or some part of it, and that's why I obsess with that whole health, and you do too.
mm,
You obviously see that there is when someone says that their thing is the thing, sometimes I lean back and pause and say, okay, I'll let them sit with it.
mm.
All right, enough on me. Let's chat further.
But it's interesting because when you say they think their thing is the thing, but I think when you first learn about something and you're evangelizing about it, you do. It's understandable why they think that is the one thing. But
I
then
think
as you
it's
learn
part of it.
more,
I think it's
yeah,
part. I mean, it's definitely breath work without a doubt is
yeah,
phenomenal. It's
yeah,
necessity.
yeah, yeah. But as the deeper you go, and then the more you start to, because everything is so interconnected, and you start to discover this and that and that, and
Yeah.
how that helps, and that helps, and that helps, and then you just become more open-minded about the whole thing, I think.
Yeah. Oh my God. Totally. I've been getting into even more about the longevity conversation, and how to really look at like their bodies, like in the most sci- scientific, but yet like mechanical way too, and how
Mm,
we can kind of like, but it's like I can't do any of that without a spiritual aspect too. So it's like, ah. So
Yeah.
talk to me more. So tell me what your journey from with your family, the cancer, and then your journey into breath work, and then you got into this functional medicine nutrition side. What made you go into that side?
The more I mean, I was reading about 100 books a year at one point, and
Oh
I
my.
have been for the last few years. And I was reading a lot around nutrition and various areas of health. And I started seeing a functional medicine doctor probably for the last 7 years now. I've been seeing a functional medicine doctor. So I was very bought into the whole
Aware.
thing.
Gotcha.
And and then I discovered functional medicine health coaching. And I was already looking to, I've been working as a DJ for a long time. I was looking for, I can't DJ forever, much as I would love to, but what is going to be my next thing? What is it I'm going to do? And as I was kind of educating myself more and more in various aspects of the health, and became a breathwork coach, and then people were coming to me asking me for help on different things, and initially I was helping them with breathwork, but that was leading into me giving them, trying to help them around nutrition and sleep and stress. And then I thought, okay, I think I need to do this properly. I need to take some courses to become qualified in some of these areas. So I took the course with the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy and the nutrition coaching course, and so on.
That's awesome. I can definitely see where I mean, they're the interconnectedness and how you kind of wanted to like build on that. And then for yourself at this point, have you applied a lot of your teachings for yourself, and then how has it been for your clients?
Yeah, well, it was one of the things I found quite interesting was as I was learning, so I got to the stage where I had a reasonable knowledge on nutrition and breath work and sleep and some other areas. And then when I was helping people, there was something missing, but I couldn't, it wasn't obvious what it was at first. And I discovered the missing piece of the puzzle as such when I discovered the tiny habits methodology.
Tiny habits,
And
yes. So yeah, I mean, I talk about mindful ways every day. Like that's my thing. But I feel like that yeah, when you make a habitual thought, did you read the Atomic Habits by you're talking about
well, no,
Atomic Habits or Tiny Habits?
I read the book Tiny Habits, and then I became a Tiny Habits coach. So I actually
Oh,
worked
very cool.
with, so I worked with the author of the book, BJ Fogg, and became the Tiny Habits coach. And that was the missing piece because then I was able to help people to change their habits
Their
around
little things,
their
their
breath
behaviors.
work. And yeah,
Get them into their to change their behavior.
exactly. Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I mean, it all comes together because
mm,
it's really having them identify what is, going on. That's
yeah.
great. That's really cool. But I mean, I know that you've done all of these different coaching things, but and different classes, but I feel like you've probably kind of come with your own, flair, your own thing for patients. You know what I mean? For clients, sorry. Or, even though you've learned from all these different people, you kind of made your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think you has been the most profound teaching for you?
Well, I think the thing that sticks out is I've been reading a lot of philosophy in the last few years as well,
Mhm.
and there was uh, it's not, well, I suppose it's not strictly philosophy, but there's a guy called Viktor Frankl who wrote a book called I mean oh god, I forgot the now, life meaning, not the meaning of life, it's something similar to that, and I forgot the title. It'll probably come back to me in a minute. But he was a prisoner in the Auschwitz concentration camps during the Second World War, and was subjected to all sorts of brutality and saw death and everything every day. And one of the quotes that is attributed to him is, there's a space between stimulus and response. And in that space is the room for our growth and freedom. And that is it's so deep. And it's just something that I come back to again and again. I first came across that about 7 years ago. And I'm now working on making that space bigger. Because before, I, like most people, used to have a default response to things. Something would happen, I'd immediately get angry. Something would happen, I immediately maybe get stressed, or
I call it a
there'd
pause.
always be the
Yeah.
default response, you know?
I call it pause mindfulness,
Yeah.
and then it depends upon what spiritualness for you is. But as you grow in that space or understanding your whatever your inner voice is, it will it'll come. And sometimes it may be really big a really big space, and sometimes it may be small depending upon what your needs are, right?
But once you're aware of it and you can start working on it, and so now the pause is much bigger, and I'm able to develop that pause. So then I can
Awesome.
think, what do I want my reaction to be, rather than having a
Mm.
default reaction?
And
And
it's
so I'm
challenging. That's a lot, you know?
Yeah. So I'm much calmer than I mean, I've always been quite laid back, but I'm much calmer now. Um, and there's nothing really, it's almost impossible to offend me because I won't take offense at anything, you know,
That's
because
cool.
I have a
Yeah.
choice whether to
You have
take
a choice.
offense.
Yeah, you have a choice to kind of be observant of that feeling, whatever that is,
Mm,
or and such. I think that's where that it's takes time to like observe that in ourselves. But in addition to that, I think as you're saying that, you as as a in the health and nutrition space, you're letting people know that you can't just get to that mindful like moment without like observing these other parts,
hmm.
and then the habits. But it's doable because you can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
Little bit at
It,
a time.
if you want to work on it, you can do it, but most people don't want to work on it, or some
Don't.
people.
Yeah, or they're just not ready, right?
Well, there's a time you have to be, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Some people don't want to work on it.
Mm,
Or it takes some sort of dramatic event to change. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So how would can those like reach you? First off, like what tip would you like to leave those in the audience?
Um, There's so many. I think on the breathwork thing, I would think because breathwork is so few people seem to know about it. It's getting bigger, but it's still quite small,
I'm a
really.
yogi, so that's the only reason they got into my in my training wise. But I think it's so very important. I could not agree with you more. But tell me where or a little something that you like to.
Well, so what I was going to say about breathwork is it's really important to think about, are you breathing through your nose or through your mouth? And if you're breathing through your mouth, you probably don't have as much energy as you could. And look at ways that you can change from breathing through your mouth to breathing through your nose. It will help you in so many ways.
I love that. I want to ask you, being that you are very much into breath work, as a marathon runner, as a runner, did it improve your running?
Well, when I ran a marathon, it was years before I knew
Oh,
anything about breathwork because
gotcha.
that was 20 years ago. I did the marathon.
Gotcha. Or when you were running, or you don't run as much.
I mean, well, now I do a lot of exercise and movement, and now I do everything with breath in mind. So
Cool.
it takes a long time for me to get out of breath now because I know how to use my breath effectively. You know?
Awesome. That's a really good point because it takes you to like that other, and you have more clarity.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. So how can those reach you if they
Well,
want to connect?
my website is tinywinyard.com.
Hmm.
And then there's various. I mean, so I've got a podcast called Habits and Health,
Habits and health. Awesome. Great.
um, and I do workshops, which are habit and health workshops. At the moment I've got a few. I do some live and I do some online.
Hmm.
I'm doing 3 regular workshops at the moment. One is helping people with sleep, which is called a Sleep Better Lab. It's a stress less workshop, and there's the Men's Health Club, where I'm specifically helping men with health issues because men are so bad at reaching out for help. So it's
That's
yeah,
so good. I mean, yeah, they're afraid to like say, "Hey, what's going on?" Right?
yeah, this whole macho thing, and yeah,
I know. I mean, I'd say like my husband's I mean, I guess because he's, attached to me, like, so I always talk about something. Eventually, he finally, like, I guess years later, he was like, "Oh, wait, you talked about that, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's chat." And so then, yeah, but you're right. I do think the men, are more afraid to ask for help. Women are like, "Hey, what's going on? What do I do?" Now,
Yeah.
I also think men are more willing once they do ask for help, are more willing to take actionable steps.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I'm being a generic side on that, but
Yeah.
overall, that once they're ready, they're ready.
Yeah.
Us
Yeah.
women, we take a little bit longer sometimes.
Well, I mean, I
Fun
think
enough.
because women are so much better at communicating and speaking of each other, and you've got your groups. The guys, when we have our groups, but we're just talking about sport or music, or we're
For
not really talking about,
the real stuff, yeah.
yeah.
No, it's okay. But hey, whatever gets it in. I really appreciate you being on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss or to chat with us before we go?
Um, no, I just think anyone who's listening clearly knows about integrative medicine. That's why they're listening to your show. But if there's perchance a couple of people who aren't familiar with integrative or functional medicine, do some research, go and find out about it. Find out your nearest practitioner, because once you can start taking a proactive attitude to health rather than a reactive attitude, your whole life will change.
I love that tip. Once you can take a proactive approach instead of reactive. That is beautifully said. Can't wait to have you on again. And thanks again so much for your time.
Thank you, dear.
I appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening in and make sure you find a mindful way each and every day.